Japanese yields rose above the zero level that pretty much marks them as negative or not or positive rates for the first time since March. So that's a multi-month high now. Despite the fact that the US House passed the USMCA trade deal with support, and despite, of course, the fact that we've seen US and China trade narrative turning a little bit positive. However, I think just the market still remain a bit cautious about what's happening around that. There is still uncertainty because the truth is that nothing has been signed yet, nothing is gone on paper. So at the same time, with the US housing markets showing some poor numbers, the USDJPY decided to push prices a little bit lower. Now, I want to also talk about the pound today because we still have the Brexit hard scenario pretty much for a Brexit, still pushing prices lower. And I also want to have a quick look on the dollar CAD as we're expecting some retail data in Canada as well as the US GDP for the day. So it will be an interesting day, closing of the week as well. We should have also some end of week flows kicking in. So without further ado, let's have a look at the dollar yen first. Dollar yen, I'll be honest, I'll change my view just earlier. What I did, originally we had a 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, if not mistaken. So calling that as an ending triangle. Now, since we've had this last move to the upside, I've decided to move that minor wave over here, 3, 4, and 5. That seems to suggest that we've got an ABC, 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 and ABC ending up here, right? So this is where ended, 5 wave ended. Now that being said, if we move, excuse me, let me just go back to that. If we move a little bit closer, we'll be able to identify that as wave 1, potentially, right? This is wave 2. Then we're going down for wave 3. Then we should have 4 and 5. 4, the correction A. Then we should expect B and C, of course, to receive further close. Now, the truth is, because I still remain a bit muted, indecisive, let's just say, on the short-term direction, we could still see that becoming in 1, 2, 3, 4, and then have another move to the upside to complete 5, a little bit higher, right? Considering, of course, at the same time, the upside bias that we have been seeing over the past few weeks. So either we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, okay, with a fresh high, and then we'll start moving lower, or wave C completed over here, ended, okay, with a weak attempt, which normally is not the case, with 1, 2, then 3, 4, and 5 up here. So this area over here, it could either be an corrective 2 to the downside, or a corrective 4, and that means that we should expect prices to move a little bit higher. Now on pound, the scenario on the pound is pretty similar to the USDJPY because, the first scenario at least, because I'm still expecting that to be an ABC, okay? Last Tuesday, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe even last week, we talked about this scenario being in 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We're expecting prices to drop a little bit lower to complete this impulsive move to the downside. This would, of course, be wave A, and then we should be looking now for price to start moving higher, okay? And potentially, we can get the 50 Fibonacci over here. So that will be around 132.50, which is a very good psychological resistance as well, and then move lower. Now, if for any case, okay, the situation in Britain changes and we become a little bit more optimistic, then what we could see is that we could see this becoming an ABC, okay, and still be valid because we still have this move to the downside over here, and it can be A, that can be B, and then C still can be like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 over here, right? So it's either that we end this correction down here, or we're going to move lower. That prices could go down to 128.22 or so, or the other scenario for a deep correction that we reach the top of wave 1, that would be the 125.77, and that would be the last stop for the downside, at least for the current, with the current patterns, the current structure. And now on dollar CAD, I've changed my view a little bit as well. I was seeing this as a, what was that? What's 3? That was a 4 and a 5 truncated, right? I've changed it because it looks like we moved to the downside quite a bit, quite more than we expected. Now, the picture here is a bit confusing as well, but let me explain because I want to clear things out a little bit. I see this as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, okay? If that's the case, then we've got Y over here, and then we're looking at this being an ABC, okay? Now, with that being said, okay, we could also have a 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5 that is gonna take us down and then continue to the downside, right? This is one scenario, but I don't see that likely being the case. The truth is that this over here, this area over here, it looks quite biased to the downside, but quite corrective as well. That makes me think that Y may not have ended here. So we could see that becoming a W, X, and Y, okay? Or indeed, this is indeed Y, and then we should have a triple combination with X and Z over here. So if we break above that level, most likely going to move to the upside, and we're probably looking at 33.90 or so, even 134, okay? Now, if we get a bounce, a test over here, then we should see prices move a little bit lower. That low would be either 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 5th wave, right? Completing this move to the downside, okay? And then moving up. Or we should see an impulse, continuation of the impulse, then move up and then continue lower. I want to thank you for watching and trade safe.